Alright guys, welcome back, and we're looking at a second example. Here we're asked to sketch the graph of y equals 2 open bracket x minus 1 all squared minus 8. Now, unlike last class example where we're given the quadratic equation in the general form, so to speak, here we have the completed square form. And just to check, so we can see the connection here, I'm just going to write the general form, a general completed square form, and then look at the comparison here. So you can clearly see that the setup is the same. We have A here, we have H, and we have K. Now the good thing about having the quadratic in the completed square form is that we're able to easily identify some of the things that we need. Now remember, in order for us to sketch a quadratic graph, we need to know the following things here, right? We need to know the value of A, which determines whether or not the parabola is a smile or frown. We need to determine the roots, which essentially are the values of x when we solve the quadratic equation. And we need to know the equation of the line of symmetry. In order for us to know the equation of the line of symmetry, we need to know what the value of h is, and then x equal the negative of that value is the equation of the line of symmetry. And also we need to know the maximum or minimum value, which is k, and maximum or minimum is determined is dependent on whether or not we have a smile or a frown. And finally we need to know the value of c, which is where the curve cuts the y-axis. So these are the things that we're going to need in order for us to be able to sketch this. All right, now looking at this, it's very easy for us to realize that the value of A is actually 2. So really and truly we know what A is, not only 2 but positive 2. So if we come over here, we already have information for one of the 5 things that we need. The value of A is positive 2 based on this fact. And that means we're going to get a smile. Okay, and of course what I mean by smile, the parabola will have that look. So we know one thing already. Now let's see if we know anything else. We also know the value of h. Here h is actually -1. So we have h, and if we have h, we can figure out what the equation of the line of symmetry is. Now remember, the equation of the line of symmetry, the general form is x equals the negative of h. But the value of h here is -1. So what is the negative of -1? That would simply be positive. So we're able to determine, based on the fact that h is -1, that the equation of the line of symmetry is going to be equal to x equals the negative of -1, which means the equation of the line of symmetry is x equals +1. So that is essentially what the equation of the line of symmetry is. So that simply means we know 2 pieces of information out of the 5 so far. And that's the beauty about getting the equation in the completed square form. It helps us a lot. The next thing that we're able to identify is the value of k. And k is -8. So the value of k here is -8. Now, because it's a smile, we're going to have a minimum value because this is the lowest point of the curve, the minimum point. So whenever we have a smile, k is going to be minimum. So that means k, the value of k based on this form is -8. And we know also that because it's a smile, it's a minimum value. So guess what? We know 1, 2, and 3 pieces of information from the completed square form right away. Now what we need to work at now to determine are the roots and also the value of c. So let's focus on trying to find the roots first. So I'm going to just get this out of the way because we know we need to find the roots now. I'm just going to put this over here and go about trying to find what the roots are. So let's come to this. Now, we can use the completed square form to attempt to find the roots. How do we do that? Well, we're going to have 2x minus 1 all squared minus 8, and equate that to 0. Remember, we can solve a quadratic equation either by factorization method, by the quadratic formula method, or by the completed square method. And seeing that this is already in the completed square form, we just equate that to 0 because it's in the general completed square form, and then go ahead and solve for the values of x, which would turn out to be the roots. So let's take a look at this now. The first thing we're going to do is carry over k, and what we would have is minus 8 go over, that would be positive 8. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to divide this side by whatever a is. So x minus 1 all squared equals 8 divided by 2, x minus 1 all squared is equal to 4. Now, we need to get rid of the square, and obviously the opposite of square is square root. But remember that when you're solving a quadratic equation, you're going to get two values. And that is where this comes in now. When you square root a number, it's a plus or a minus of that number. So what we have is x minus 1 equals plus or minus 2. And what we can do now is break off to get the two different values for x. So I'm just going to put this up so we can look at it and just work out the roots. So, breaking it off, when x minus 1 equals positive 2, and when x minus 1 equals negative 2. And we simply solve for x in both cases, getting the two values and therefore getting the two roots. So x would be equal to 2 plus 1, x would be equal to 3. So here is one root, and the root is also the answer for x, so that's a root. Next thing, x is equal to minus 2 plus 1, x is equal to minus 1. So now we have the two answers for the unknown. We've solved the quadratic equation essentially, and we've also determined what the roots are. So we know the roots are 3 and negative 1. So we found the roots, and we're almost there in terms of all the information that we need to get the graph. So the roots are negative 1 and 3, but just for emphasis, I'm going to put it this way so that we know that it's going to be on the x-axis. The roots are always on the x-axis. It tells us where the parabola cuts the x-axis. That's the significance of the roots. So the roots are negative 1 and 3, and we know that it's on the x-axis. So I now have 4 pieces of information out of 5, and this is where it gets interesting now, finding the value of c. So how do we do that? We have several ways that we can find the value of c, and we're going to be looking at 2 methods. So I'm going to stop the video here because I want to be focusing on now how we're going to determine how to find c, and then we're going to get, when we get back, we're going to look at that, and I'm going to actually show you 2 methods, very interesting methods to determine what c is. Why? Because looking at the completed square form, there is no c in it. So we have to be able to calculate the value of c, and that is the last piece of the puzzle that we need to be able to sketch the quadratic graph. So when we come back, we'll look at how to determine the value of c from the completed square form. So I hope you found this video insightful so far, and we'll come back with the second video.